Well, today let's talk about religious jargon. Now, religious jargon or the word jargon refers to a language that is used by a particular group, and those outside of that circle, for instance, the medical profession, few understand the meaning of the words. I want to talk just for a moment this morning about sin as a religious jargon. And I say that because people within the religious circle, that is, church folks and people who read their Bible, have a good concept or understanding of what sin is. And but the guy on the street, when was the last time you ever heard him talk about sin? I mean, in the secular world, sin is sort of just a religious jargon, and most people have little understanding of what it is. Now, there's different words in the original language for sin, like missing the mark and going astray and things of that nature. But fundamentally, sin is against God. Now, you can see the problem, can't you? Because when God is removed, especially in secular society, religious terms or jargon are seldom really understood. You see, sin is more than wrongdoing or making mistakes. It's really a sin that's an offense or wrongdoing against God. And of course, what sin does is alienate us, that is, put some distance between us and God, where the Bible speaks about separation. Of course, the consequences of sin are very severe because in Romans 6 and verse 20, I'm sorry, Romans 6, it speaks about the consequences of sin is death. The wages of sin, Paul says, is death. So when we talk about sin, it's really a serious problem. And I'm just bringing up the idea that it's a term now that's not used often. But let me mention something. Just because the language of sin is abandoned, that does not mean that the problem goes away. Sin doesn't go away. For all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. That's the verse that was sticking in my head there just a moment ago, Romans 6 and 23, or rather Romans 3 and 23. I'm thinking Romans all the way through this. But at any rate, the just because the language is not used, I'm trying to make the point that it doesn't mean that sin goes away, nor does the problem. And that's what the Bible and the gospel's about, that God, because of his goodness and his grace and his willingness to forgive us through the cross, through Jesus Christ, that there can be a solution to sin and removing that serious problem. So I want you to think about it a little bit today about really, how many people you know in your circle, especially your outside of the church, really have any idea whatsoever about what sin is and the consequences of that? Well, it's kind of an interesting subject, isn't it? A term that's really seldom used outside of a church building. So give it some thought and maybe bring it up sometimes with people that you know and just say, what do you think really sin is? That might start a really interesting discussion, wouldn't it? Well, see you next week. You take care.